This story is brought to you by the month of Lurve.
The month of Lurve.
Chapter 4. Just as things start to settle. Rainbow Dash woke up after a completely nightmare-free sleep. It had been a long time since she was able to go to sleep without worrying about what she would see when she did. Even though it was obvious to her that no pony could fight something that was in a dream, it was still the feeling that there was some pony there that made all the worries go away. When she woke up, however, she was alone in Applejack's bed, and she felt the pang of loneliness hit her as soon as she realized there was no pony with her. She yawned loudly and looked around her friend's room. She hadn't really been in this room too much. It was actually pretty empty, which surprised Rainbow at first, but as she started to think about Applejack more, it started to make sense. Applejack had a family that she was able to spend time with, and Applejack wasn't much of a loner. She probably spent most of her time with her family and didn't need to go to her room to be alone too much. Rainbow rubbed the sleep out of her eyes and pulled the blanket off of herself as she got out of Applejack's bed. Today was supposed to be a slow day for the weather ponies, and she didn't need to go into work today, so she walked outside as she tried to figure out what she was going to do. She saw Applejack working in her field and decided to go say hi before starting her slow day. She started to float over to her friend slowly. As Applejack noticed Rainbow coming, she stopped bucking apples and smiled to the pony she was now roommates with. Rainbow felt a little flutter of happiness bubble inside of her when she saw that smile. She found it odd because that had never happened before. "Hey there, Rainbow, did you sleep well last night?" Her smile seemed genuine, so Rainbow didn't think she was making fun of her for the nightmare she knew made her look too weak. "After getting in bed with you, I did." Rainbow felt a little blush touch her cheeks, and an embarrassed smile found its way to her face as she thought to herself, "Why the hey am I blushing? That's so not awesome." Applejack's smile never faltered, and she didn't seem embarrassed at all when she spoke. "I couldn't just let you sleep through that nightmare, now could I? We all know nightmares aren't something to mess around with. Now that you live with me, I can be there if you need help with anything." Applejack's smile was starting to spread to Rainbow. It was making her feel happy, and that annoyed Rainbow just a bit. "Can we please stop this sappiness? Seriously, this is getting to be just too much for me. And also, don't tell any pony about last night. Any of last night. That was, as Rarity put it, uncouth. It would hurt my reputation if any pony found out about that." Rainbow puffed her chest out, trying to show that she was still Rainbow Dash, the best pony around. Applejack nodded. "Well, that ain't a problem, Rainbow. I can do that. What are you up to today?" Applejack began to get back to work as Rainbow watched her. "I really don't know. I don't have to go into work today, so I'll probably just practice for the Wonderbolt some more." "I think you need to just sit back and take a break today, Rainbow. Your life is going to be different now, and I don't think that you've realized how much yet. Just kick back and do nothing. Collect your thoughts a little bit. Figure out what you're going to do now." Rainbow nodded. "I think I can do that, AJ. Thanks. By the way, can you not tell any pony about how lame I was being? That would severely hurt my reputation." "I can do that if you want. It's not like I'm gonna go around trying to make you look bad on purpose. Now get." Rainbow smiled at her, thanked her, and flew into the sky to find a nice cloud to rest on. It was a pretty cloudy day, so she really didn't have to go far. She lay down on the soft material, sighed to herself, closed her eyes, and let her mind wander. She knew that she wouldn't be able to buy a new house. She was never very good at saving money and didn't have that much saved anyway. So she was going to have to make that money back. Her parents' place had been pretty nice, so it made her a little sad that she wasn't going to be able to get the same type of place back. It did, however, mean that she was going to have to mooch off of her friends for a little while, which she had mixed feelings about. She felt bad that she'd be taking advantage of Applejack's hospitality a little bit by living there and not giving anything in return. But it meant that she was living with Applejack. That was going to be pretty awesome. She was the mare that was closest to Rainbow in personality, in raw talent, and the friendly competitions they always had kept things exciting. Rainbow would definitely admit that Applejack was her best friend, no doubt about it. She figured she could fix the bad feelings by helping out with Applejack's work on the farm when she needed it, so that was a pretty simple fix. But she seriously owed Applejack for letting her stay with her in the first place. It had been only last night that Rainbow's place had been destroyed, but she didn't feel depressed at all. Staying with Applejack was actually cheering her up, and not having a home to go back to wasn't that bad. However, it was the memories that were involved with the place that was killing her. She'd lived there since she could remember. She promised herself that she would never let anything happen to it, and she failed. Not only did she fail herself, she felt like she failed her parents as well. She didn't like failure in general, and was something that was so important to her, it hurt her pretty bad. Rainbow sighed and tried to take her mind off of what had happened. Applejack told her to collect her thoughts, so that's what she tried to do. After thinking about it for a while, she didn't even know if she wanted to get a new place to stay. She hated being alone. It didn't suit her well. She didn't have any pony to show off to at any time of the day then. It was the sentimental value that kept her at her parents' place, and not the allure of having a great house. She turned over and looked down at the farm. She could see Applejack taking some apples back to the cart that was about half full. Rainbow closed her eyes and her mind flashed back to when she was sleeping with Applejack. That was the fastest she had ever fallen asleep before, and directly after a nightmare? Usually that kept her up for an hour or so before she could fall back asleep, but with Applejack it had been within seconds. She had felt so comfortable, so safe, and every worry she had just gone away immediately. Rainbow had never felt like that before, and it made something stir inside her, but she had no idea why, or what it was. She shook her head and ignored the feeling. Rainbow didn't like anything she didn't understand. So she began to try to figure out what she was going to do. Find a new place and live in solitude again? Or ask if Applejack wouldn't mind if she stayed rooming with her. Rainbow figured that Applejack wouldn't care much. She was going to pay rent, of course. That would be cheaper than buying a new place to stay anyway. But the problem would be Applejack's family. They just knew that she was staying there while she tried to get back on her feet. They were kind and all, but they were very family-oriented, opposite of how Rainbow was. The only decision Rainbow could come up with was that it was hard to think on an empty stomach. She'd completely forgotten about breakfast, so she got up and flew down to Applejack's house. It felt weird just walking straight in without knocking, but it was where she lived at the moment, whether temporarily or not. She walked into the kitchen and took a little bit of food, trying not to be rude and raid much of what was there. She started to walk upstairs with her food before pausing, and wondering if they minded if she ate upstairs. She laughed at the childish thought, and remembered that she was an adult. She could do whatever the hay she felt like. After having a nice breakfast, she laid down on the cloud bed she had failed to sleep on last night. On the desk next to her sat the photo of her parents. She tenderly put a hoof on that picture, and took a deep breath in and out. She stared into the photo, completely lost in it. She was completely lost in thoughts that wound up going all over the place. She ended up staring at her very last memorabilia from her house for 3 hours straight, completely oblivious to anything around her. She didn't notice Applejack come into the room at all. "Are you all right, Sugar Cube?" Rainbow blinked and turned her head in surprise. "How long have you been there?" "Just a couple of minutes. I came up to take a shower because I was done with the farm for today, and I came in and saw you just laying there. After I take a shower, come down to eat some dinner. The rest of the family is visiting relatives for the week, and I'm taking care of the farm by myself for right now, so things won't get weird or nothing." "Dinner? But it's not that late, is it? Isn't it lunchtime?" Applejack answered her simply, "Dinner is at this time for country folk. We usually work hard later in the day and don't have time to eat a big meal then, so we eat our big meal in the middle of the day." Rainbow got up and stretched her wings and legs. "That's weird, but I'm fine with that. I'm always in the mood to eat." Applejack gave Rainbow a smile and walked over to the bathroom to clean up before going to eat. Rainbow began to walk around the house, looking at her surroundings. She had never really been anywhere except Applejack's room and the kitchen before. She walked downstairs and turned into the living room. All around it were pictures of the various Apple family members. Yep, they're definitely family-oriented. She couldn't walk into a single room without finding some type of picture, or something that was obviously memorabilia from some pony in the family. She began to wonder how she would have turned out if that traumatic incident from her past had never happened. Would she have been so headstrong? Would she have had the tenacity she had? Would she have been anything like she was now? Rainbow shuddered as she thought about how a single moment can change who you are forever. It's a pretty scary thought to have, and it made her worry about the future again. She sighed and continued to walk around the house and check everything out, while still lost in thought. If she had had a family to grow up with, she surely wouldn't have been any less awesome than she was now. She would have just been awesome in different ways. She could have been more of a family person than she was, and that sure didn't make Applejack any less of an amazing pony. Again, she had that feeling run through her, and again she put it in the back of her mind and continued to walk around. She heard the water shut off from upstairs and decided to head back to Applejack's room. She found the door open and walked in while Applejack was brushing her mane. "I'll just be a minute, Rainbow. I'm almost done." Rainbow lay down and watched her brush her mane, waiting for her to finish. When she did, Rainbow followed her downstairs and into the kitchen. She always loved the Apple family's cooking. They were the best at what they did, and no one could contest that. She made an excellent meal for the two of them, but Rainbow didn't eat all of it, telling Applejack, "It's going to take me a while to get used to eating a big meal now instead of later. I might forage around for some snacks later." Applejack nodded and told her that was fine, and they spent the rest of the day talking and walking around the farm. Rainbow told Applejack that she was going to help on the farm whenever Applejack needed it. She was told that she didn't have to, and Applejack could handle everything. But Rainbow persisted. She wanted to hold a little dignity that she felt she was slowly losing with the past couple of days that she had been acting so un-Rainbow-dashious, as she put it. Applejack had learned from the last apple season to accept help when it was offered, so she ended up agreeing to Rainbow's help. The whole time she was with Applejack, Rainbow had been trying to figure out how to tell her that she had decided she didn't really want to find her own place again, but she couldn't figure out how to bring that topic up. Eventually, Applejack did it for her. "So, I told you to collect your thoughts earlier. Did you figure out anything on how you're going to find a place for your own?" Rainbow rubbed the back of her mane with a hoof. "Well, I did think about it, and honestly, I don't really want to find a new place." Applejack stopped walking and looked at Rainbow with her head cocked to the side. "What do you mean you don't want to find a new place? Where are you going to live then?" "I was, kind of wondering if I could just stay with you permanently." The look on Applejack's face told Rainbow that she was definitely taken aback. "I know it's a lot to ask, but I put a lot of thought into it, and I just don't like living by myself anymore. Just one day of staying here, and I can already tell that staying with a friend would be amazing, and I think it would do me good, too. I've been happier here in one day than I ever was when I was alone in my place, and I wouldn't be much of a burden. I'd pay rent and everything." Applejack's face was still full of surprise as Rainbow watched her, trying to figure out what was going through her mind. Was she even considering it at all? It was obviously a lot to consider, and Rainbow was about to take it back as Applejack exclaimed, "Why, of course you can! You're always being such a loner, Rainbow. Living with some pony else is going to be amazing for you." Now it was Rainbow's turn to be surprised. That was definitely not the response she was expecting to get. She was expecting either a no or "let me talk to my family about it before I answer," or something along those lines, but Applejack looked totally excited to have Rainbow living with her permanently. Rainbow got over her surprise, and a grin spread over her face. "That was a lot easier than I was expecting." It felt like a huge weight had been lifted off of her, and the happiness she had been feeling rushed back to her. The rest of the day went by smoothly, with both of the mares talking and laughing the day by. They ate dinner, and continued the day as they were before. Before they knew it, it had been dark for quite a while, as they figured it was probably time to go to bed. Rainbow grabbed an apple before heading upstairs, and began to walk to her cloud bed, before pausing and taking a second look towards Applejack's bed. The memory of sleeping there last night, and feeling much safer and more comfortable, came back to her. Applejack caught the hesitant look that Rainbow had and spoke softly to her. "Rainbow, if you don't want to have another nightmare, you can sleep with me again. I don't mind at all." Rainbow still hesitated, feeling like she was taking advantage of her friend when she was allowed to live there permanently now. However, if Applejack offered, she decided it couldn't hurt. She climbed into the other side of the bed and gave Applejack a nervous smile. Applejack returned the smile and pulled her into a hug, and the feeling Rainbow kept getting came back for the third time. She looked into Applejack's eyes, and before she knew what she was doing, found herself kissing Applejack. After a second, her mind caught up with what her body was doing, and her eyes flung wide open as she pulled back to see Applejack laying there with her eyes confused and her mouth slightly open. "Oh my gosh! I'm so sorry. I had no idea why I just did that. It was completely on impulse. I didn't mean to. I'm so sorry." Before she could finish, however, Applejack pulled her back and she found her lips meeting with Applejack's again. Rainbow's mind was racing a mile a minute, asking herself a billion questions at the same time. Does this mean I like mares? Do I like AJ? Does she like me? When did I start to like her? That's probably what this feeling is. Applejack deepened the kiss, and Rainbow felt her body completely melt against Applejack's, and her mind clouded as she lost track of what was going on there. Whatever this meant, she knew she liked it, and that's all that mattered. After a minute or two, Rainbow pulled back and looked into Applejack's eyes. There was something new in there, but she couldn't figure out exactly what it was. Her eyes began to flutter shut as a sudden exhaustion came upon her. She scooted closer to Applejack for the second night in a row and nuzzled herself into her mane. A huge smile was on her face as she fell asleep wrapped in Applejack's arms. Here was another moment that was going to change her future drastically. But this time, she wasn't worried. She was going to enjoy this change. To be continued.